Hey guys, I am DM Zone. This is Gamers Oasis. We're going to do diary number 4. Okay, guys, so I was going back over my campaign diaries and I realized it's been a minute. It's actually been since November of last year. We're in January of 2022. So it's been a minute. I feel like I should have gotten more of these out, but time being what it is and the end of the year craziness and the holidays and the game not being 100% where I wanted it to be yet, I'm happy that we just have made progress through the area that we've made and that type of stuff. And we're getting a larger group. I talked a lot about that in the last video. I'm not going to do that here. So of course this is BX D&D. Check out my other videos for that if you want to know more about what that is. It's not 5e. The party last week, the week prior to this week, had actually completely cleared the first level of the dungeon, which is not actually a very big space. But there was quite a few encounters. It was sort of like a defensive bulkhead, I guess you could say, against that. And then as you go deeper into the dungeon, which was never really specifically made to be a dungeon, I think you'll find that it will be a little more spacious in where you have conflicts and that type of stuff. But that said, the first room has another combat. And it kind of gets into a tag team, and the party has now started to see some of the dynamics of the dungeon. So this dungeon is set in the east tower of Rodemus Keep so far. They've not explored beyond that. And I've suffice to say that they've explored the first level of this dungeon because basically that would be Rodemus Keep. There are other things within the ruins, but that's not either within the dungeon or really taking you to the east tower, which is why I've sort of classified it as that. So far, they've run into some undead, zombies, ghouls, skeletons, and something called a thule, which is nothing more than a ghoul that used to be a hobgoblin, excuse me. And instead of having paralyzing, or in addition to having paralyzing touch, I should say, they also have regeneration. So they're kind of like almost part troll. So they're a little more terrifying. And I made them a little bigger, a little more scary to represent that. They've cleared it out. They've realized that this place is not as big as they feared, that there were quite a few enemies up in here. There was a room with 10 goblins, but those actually were dispatched incredibly easy as they went through the room we'll call room 5, the room with the statue that's underneath water with a big pool of water, some of it a couple of feet deep, some of it 10 plus feet deep where there's a sinkhole. As they were crossing that to come at the PCs, the magic user went ahead and cast a spell, sleep, and made them all sleep in the water. I didn't feel like it was an aggressive action for them to be choking. People do get knocked out and pass out and never wake up because they're in a small amount of water. So I gave them a save, and if they failed, they died essentially within a few rounds. If they passed and they woke up sputtering, and then they went to join combat. They were quickly dispatched though. Really good rolls by the PCs, really bad rolls by the NPCs. That seemed to be a theme. They went to the hobgoblins. They defeated the hobgoblins at the end that were guarding 2 malnourished, mistreated humans. And they one fought to the death, the other one surrendered. They were able to garner that the rats are the leaders of this place. That they bring the payroll, they bring the money, they bring the food for the guards. The goblins are slightly more than hired henchmen. This is their home. The hobgoblins were actually just hired henchmen. They're just paid to be here. They even told them how much, how many silver a day it was. So they had a general idea, but they don't actually know why the rats control. But whoever controls the rats is controlling this area, making all the shot calls and that type of stuff. And they're using rats for information gathering, which the party had noticed rats here and there throughout the dungeon. So they know that they're kind of known in this area now. And, it is what it is. The hobgoblin also knew that there was another way in, but that they didn't know how to do it. They had looked through this trap door and that they had seen undead, but they know that the goblins go this way and have a way to avoid the undead. So, because the undead weren't being controlled by the goblins, they just were able to evade them, essentially. Anyways, so they now are armed with this information, and that was all last week. And then they got XP, and excuse me, one of the things I did, which is not a BX thing, it's more of a modern day tool, but I think they would be okay with it. I think Tom Moldvay would be very good with this. I think Gary Gygax, Dave Arneson, we would all love this concept. The thing they were trying to avoid was like the murder hoboism that was going on back in the day. Everyone coming from war games, where it's just kill, 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 kill. They're trying to avoid that. So I gave some milestone XP or not really milestone, whatever we're going to call it, the feature point or whatever, where for every prisoner they found, they would go ahead and get a chunk of XP that would then be divided amongst the party. And that helped them quite a bit. It got the XP up there on some of them really nice. They got 1,000 XP for a total of 2 prisoners, 500 apiece. And that was significantly more than the killing, which I think that's the reason why the founders would appreciate that, is they don't want it to be equal. They don't want it to be, I got this and, equal number. No, it would actually be worth going just to rescue prisoners and leave and not go into the combat. And I think that's where the founders would appreciate this. So now let's go into what happened last week. What happened last week is, I don't know, it's a little sad because this character had been with the group for a little bit, but he wasn't doing anything wrong. He opened the door, checked for traps, that type of stuff. His name was Artie. And he was standing there at the door with a bow, going to shoot a zombie or a goblin, because there were literally both in this room. I'll get to the description of the room in a second. And he took an arrow from a goblin, just a random, unlucky arrow, and it struck him dead right there. Did 5 points of damage, and he had 5 hit points. And he's dead right there. That's it. That's all there was back in BX. If your hit points hit 0, you died. So, he was the first character death we had in the game. We had a couple of people get hit, but no one ever actually died. We had, I forgot this part. We had an elf that got blinded, Sanev, and that was a bit of a arduous thing. They do not have a cure blindness spell in expert, even though they say in basic in expert there will be a cure blindness spell. So I basically just took the one from the BICME version of D&D and then pushed it over into BX D&D. I think it'd be pretty close to what they're wanting and expecting. And I don't think that blindness should be basically a character death. I just really don't. So, there was that. So anyways, the description of the room. So, they're in a room that's 15 feet wide and 25 feet long. It opens to a door. The door is rickety. It's stuck, but it's only being held up by one hinge. It was surprisingly difficult to get through, probably because it was stuck by the PCs or bad dice rolls. And when they got through the door, there was several humanoid figures standing off in the twilight of their torches and everything, barely able to be seen when you stepped into the room. Couldn't see them when you actually opened the door. And those turned out to be zombies, and they turned and started to give chase towards the party. To the party's right, or to the west of the party, so actually to the west and the east, there was bars, and there was 2 cells designed for actual prisoners. Like if you were to have a tower guard when you had a prison for your people that came through, both of those would was right there. And to the west one, to the PC's right, there was 3 goblins with bows hiding behind rubble and debris, and they were basically doing pot shots at the PC. The PCs were able to identify within the first round that there was a way through the hole that was not at the zombie height, like head height. It was more at their knees. So if you were to lay down, you could slip through on your belly side and that type of thing. And in my world, zombies don't make logic like that. Like if they can force their way through, they'll go through. But if you have horizontal bars that are preventing them, unless they somehow fall or go over it or something of that nature, they're not going to be able to navigate that. So in this case, because it was at their knees essentially, and unless the zombie was on their hands and knees, they would not know or be able to get through that hole. They don't know they made it anyways. But so the goblins are relatively safe behind that hole, behind that bars essentially, and they knew that. And they also had an escape route, which was down a sewer drain that they had taken the locks off of. And they have gone around taking the locks off of many of the sewer drains within this dungeon, because on this level, because they like to access and utilize the sewer drains going up and down. The sewer drains exit into something. They don't know where they're at. That's actually where the party stopped. The party went back, got the prisoners they found in the east the east cell. There was a female and 2 males. So they got an extra 1500 XP on that week game, for that. They've got everyone safe, and now they're getting ready to descend down into the goblin side of things, or what they believe to be the goblin side of things, and go from there. So it's going to be an interesting week. Hopefully everyone shows up. But literally we stopped the game as they were getting ready to descend down this sewer drain that had a ladder that was going to take them into an unknown area, different than the second level of the dungeon. Now, if you know anything about old school Dungeons and Dragons, every time you go down, sorry to rub my hands menacingly, I'm not trying to do that. Every time you go down, it is actually a different level of dungeon, and they are tougher. So yes, this is actually the 3rd level / alternate entrance, and it'll probably be more difficult than what they're expecting. Or maybe they're expecting something terrifying and it's not actually that bad. But going down here and ridding this place of goblins, I think will make their existence in there a lot safer. So anyways, that is where the party is. We did have our first party death. Some of the players afterwards were brand new, and they were like, has that happened often? I'm like, actually, we've been pretty lucky. This is only the first party member we've ever had die. But that's been a lot by luck. We did have a PC get blinded, and they had to spend a 3rd level. They had to buy basically a cleric's luck for like 1,500 gold to cast a 3rd level cure blindness on him. I think that hits right. Low levels makes it extremely difficult. May mean you have to leave that character behind until you can afford to raise or fix them. but you can come back to them. High level, it's just blindness. You can fix it. You probably have a cleric that can cast it. And I think that's where that should fit in difficulty. Um, it's not like death. Death is death, But this is different. And I like this a lot more. But anyways, so that's where we are. We'll go ahead and count this as diary number 4. Diary number 5 will be them going into whatever's down at the bottom of that tunnel where the goblins fled to. Anyways, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know what you think down below. If you got any value out of this, or if you found enjoyment in this, go ahead and hit the like button. That really helps the algorithm. Helps me get my videos out to more people. And keep rolling those dice. Bye.